Hey there hunters, welcome back to the Gunners Guild. Today I could not be more excited to talk about Wild Hearts and the new update. I know my last video was pretty doom and gloom about Wild Hearts and my problems with it, but I am really happy to announce that I'm flipping a 180 today with the amazing patch that dropped. Before I dive in though, let me thank my sponsor. This video is sponsored by G Fuel, who have returned the Peeps flavored this month for Easter. God have mercy on your soul if you enjoy Peeps. But you can use my promo code FEM to get 20% off most purchases at checkout, so you can support me by supporting yourself. Thanks. Okay, so let's talk about the new patch today. I'm still absolutely giddy when I read these patch notes, and they are huge, like way more than I expected. I do wish they were formatted better though. So give the patch notes a look, trust me, because there's a lot of juicy information in there for everybody, and I'm not going to cover everything. So link to that is in the description below. But I'm just going to go through and highlight my top picks for the changes here in these patch notes. First is that they added a camera distance setting, which lets you zoom out the camera. While this is not a field of view slider, which would widen the angle in which we can see, this does at least pull back the camera a little bit, so it's just not all claustrophobic. So I would say this was an easy quick fix and I'm glad to see it, but I still would like an actual widened camera angle at some point. Next, yes, thank you, God, we have options to disable Karakuri on the map. I've been asking about this for a while, and I would like to take sole credit for this one. You're welcome, but thank you to the dev team for putting in this feature. You can finally destroy Karakuri crafts from the map setting. This one here, I don't really understand, so I was hoping someone could shed some light on this one. Maybe I'm missing something. If anyone knows, just fill me in, please. But this does not remove the Karakuri starting at the player rather than in front of them. So I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna move on. Then we have this one. Small kimono will stop being an issue when you're finishing up large kimono hunts. I still find them extremely annoying up until that point, but I'll take any reductions to the harassment small kimono do at this point. And then we have some improvements to rain and snow because, wow, dude, some of these maps had some absurd weather conditions and they only just made the game blurry and impossible to fight in. I'm glad to see improvements made to little things like this as well, so that's nice. And then we have some weapon tweaks. Cannon did not get a buff, but it did get some nice quality of life features, so we don't have like the super long ending animations anymore. So you're not going to have to evade out of all your little skills. So you can go right into laser from, picking up the energy. You can sheath and run when we pull out our key bases really quick, stuff like that. It just feels a lot smoother to play Cannon, so that's cool. Other weapons did get a lot of buffs. I'm not too familiar with their movesets though, so I'm unsure how much, so check those out for yourself. Nadachi did get a ton of buffs though, and Claw got a bit of a nerf, so Claw players actually have to play the game now, unfortunately. Bow also got hit with another nerf. I mean, yeah, just kicking it while it's down. They increased the arrows released at the end of Bolster 1, which was literally just that last shot that we usually canceled out of anyway, and now it does a split of 3 arrows, which honestly doesn't do anything for us since we're hitting arrow caps anyways. They reduced the screen shake, and that shouldn't be underestimated enough though. That's a huge quality of life buff for bows. The screen shake was absurd, so it feels a lot better now, so that's awesome. Thread generation on bow also took a slight hit if you were incorporating Karakuri into your rotation. Sad. And then we got the big ones. Increased stamina cost to evade with bow, and reduced distance dodge with bow. Look, the distance was justifiable, no complaints, was definitely needed. But now with the increased stamina cost, bow is going to be even more dependent on stamina skills than food. I honestly think a better option would have been just to reduce the effectiveness of fish because they provide way too much stamina reduction, but now they're basically mandatory, which is quite a shame if you wanted to play crit or elemental bow. Moving on, we have adjusted damage for crits. This is a buff. Crits are way better now, and they were already pretty viable before. Crits are dealing almost 30% more damage than they were before, so yeah, crit meta is here for sure. Another huge change, ailments no longer lose buildup over time. A big win for status builds. You could reasonably get statuses to proc on most fights now since you don't have to apply them in large bursts. I can't understate how good this actually is, and it makes status builds way more viable. Now adding on to this, huge quality of life change, kimono no longer flee as often as before. It's super noticeable too. I can typically get through most hunts and the kimono will only flee when it's in its skull phase. I love this change, and it makes casually grinding this game so much smoother since there's less time chasing kimono around. It's such a good change. Other huge quality of life change, talisman limit increased from 50 to 80. You can just fit in so many more talismans now, and it makes me want to go back and farm more because now I can fit reasonably everything that I want. Also, taking credit for this one too, I bitched about the talisman system. And I got one last thing I want to read before I go through all these patch notes. Armor's got more skills. Fuck yeah, you're welcome. Taking credit for that too. Another big win. Older armors now have some extra skills on them, making many more older pieces much more interesting and valuable. This includes giving humans access to deaf ears, which is amazing, and human sight now automatically becomes viable because of that. Big win for the armors. Awesome, I'm glad I complained about it. Okay, so that's just a quick look at all the patch notes. Again, please give it a read, there's tons of good stuff in there. And I really want to thank the dev team, PR team, and everyone working on Wild Hearts for actually making big changes to the game's features. Dude, I know I'm a small-time content creator, but I do feel like a lot of my vocal complaints about this game have been heard and have been fixed in this update. And honestly, you don't know how much that means to me. Like, it means a lot. I've never really had this feeling of being heard before. It's weird, but honestly, thank you guys so much. I know nobody likes to hear criticism and doom and gloom videos, but I'm glad I put out that big criticism piece a week ago, and already I don't know if it's because of me, it's probably not, I'm probably just getting full of myself, but I feel like that made them put in a lot of these little changes that I am very happy to see. So yeah, thank you guys, really. Okay, so moving on with the patch though, let's talk about the new kimono and its gear. Murakumo is the new wind kimono, who is weak to fire by the way, so use those new Grimstalker weapons. I feel like each of the additional kimonos that are going to be added will be weak to the last ones, so the next one with the deeply volatile crow, most likely weak to wind. Anyway, Murakumo is an interesting fight. I mean, it does a lot really fast. I thought Golden Tempest was wild, but this little fox is straight up just leagues above that guy. So a big part of this fight is managing its enraged state when it powers up and gets significantly crazier moves. And to combat it, you really need to make use of the new Karakuri top they introduced, which is cool, but also kind of sucks because I hate using Torch Karakuri. But the top itself remains active for a long period of time, and what you need to do is hit Murakumo during its charges or charged up attacks with the top. And if you do, you'll send it flying and get a big knockdown. The fight can definitely get out of hand quickly though if you're not using the top, and while I was doing this fight with a cannon, I had the fights go from pretty easy to getting absolutely wrecked in a heartbeat. Luckily, this kimono does have a lot of good visual cues for its attacks, so with some learning, it does get easier to deal with. But you will want to bring stamina management gear for sure, you're going to be dodging a lot. And don't go in it at -4 wind resistance like I did. Overall though, I think it's another great addition. I do really like this fight a lot. I haven't really been able to complain about many of the fights in this game, especially the post-content additions. They've all been pretty dang good. Moving on to Murakumo's gear, first right now is the talismans from this kimono. They are bugged, so you don't need to farm them. It always drops the same attack talisman that does 2% wind damage and nothing else. So I'm sure that will be fixed, but for now, don't worry about it, farm other stuff. Now let's go over to the armor. The armor, hit and miss for me. I do like that we have status on the armor with the head and boots coming with Entangler. That's pretty freaking cool. Unfortunately, Entangler's only good for Karakuri builds. I will need to find a way to incorporate that to my Blade to Bar setup for sure though. And we do have some other skills that are alright, like Tiger's Den and Destiny, but they're not crazy meta defining. I'm sure these other pieces will pop up here and there on sets, but the real main takeaway here is having statuses on armor, and that's pretty big. The weapons here are along the same line as Grimstalker, so the raw ones are good, but they don't really have the inherent skills that I like, so I'm probably not going to use them too much. I'm not sure if any weapons will use the raw ones, but the elemental weapons are easily going to be the new meta wind weapons, and I do expect this trend to continue with each new monster giving us a new elemental weapon to add to our arsenal, which is exciting. I'm always glad to have options to swap to. Now I do want to gloss over that briefly because the real shining star here is that we do have the option to limit break earlier tiers of weapons to get similar raw to our current max tier. So we can go back and pick up totally different paths and land on a lower tier weapon and then upgrade that into our new go-to pick. Sadly, we can only augment for raw right now, which means elemental is still being left behind besides, the current tier of elemental weapons. But you can at least go back and make older tier weapons up to date, which is great. And even with just the raw edition, the old elemental weapons do still become comparable to the newer tier with a slight amount of element on them. So it's like 75% raw, 25% element rather than flip-floppy like they are now, which means that just don't discount their skills if you like them. They'll be serviceable for sure. I'm excited to go back and redo all my weapons again. You gotta be careful though, because remember you're boosting the slot on the tree, not the weapon, so you do not get refunds for going backwards. So spend wisely. Okay, I want to wrap that up for now. There's still so much I gotta do, like update sets, talisman farm again, try out new meme builds, all that good stuff. So please bear with me while I try and get these videos out. I do have a busy weekend. I re-enrolled back in school, so I'm gonna be busy with schoolwork like that. I'm gonna try and get my sets updated and out early next week, so stay tuned in for those. But thank you again to the dev team for this update. It's a massive win across the board, and I can safely say, yes, I do finally recommend this game now. There's a lot to do and a ton of quality of life changes that have made the overall experience so much better. And thank you to my Patreon members for all the support. Again, you're keeping me alive right now, trust me. If anyone else wants to chat about Wild Hearts or gaming in general, feel free to join my Discord in the description below. But yeah, thanks and good luck out there, hunters.